What if you weren't trying to just survive Squid Game? What if you were trying to win it? Today, I'll break down the smartest strategies you can use to beat every game in Squid Game Season 3. The first game is essentially a deadly hide and seek. Each player is given a randomized color ball. Blue means you're a hider, and you either have to hide for the entire game or find the exit to survive. However, if you get the red ball, you are the hunter, and you need to take out and eliminate a blue player in order to survive yourself. If you don't, you will be the one eliminated. Which color ball you get will greatly determine which strategy you need to best survive and win the game. I'll be covering the blue hiding players first. At the start of any game, you should really be looking around your surroundings to see what you can pick up, and this game's no different. When you're first given your box, you should be analyzing your own key and checking for others to see if they have the same key or a different one as you. If they're not, it makes the smartest sense to stick with people who have all different keys. You don't know what they're going to be used for yet, but it gives you the best options. And this is only one potential of staying in a group. As you can see, your opponents have knives, which means they have a much more violent advantage against you. Therefore, staying in a group means that you can overpower and potentially survive an attacker. Once you get into the game, you do want to find the exit as soon as possible. So it does make sense to run with a team and try and open as many doors as possible to find that exit. However, what I would recommend is opening doors and not going through all of them. Just look through them and see if the exit is potentially there, and close every door that you do go through. That way, when a red player tries to hunt you down, they'll think that you went through the doors that you left open and send them off in the complete wrong direction. When you're in a group, make sure you're in the middle. If the front blue player runs into a red player, they'll be the first ones taken out. Equally, if you're being chased, you don't want to be the one at the very back who could be hunted down. Staying in the middle gives you herd security and means that you can react best to any threat that comes your way. Should your team be attacked by the red team, your strategy should change now if you're alone. It should shift from trying to find the exit to trying to hide most effectively. This is because if you're running around, you're much more likely to be found by a red player and hunted down. And the more blue players that are hunted down by red players means that red players no longer need to kill anybody else to survive, which means if you were to run into these red players later, they're not going to need to eliminate you. And so by staying hidden for as long as possible, you increase the chances of not being eliminated. So your best strategy in this situation would be to try and find a small room with one entrance and one exit, and have your key put to the exit door, ready to open it and run away. That way, it's still locked so nobody can come through your exit door, but if somebody did come through your entrance door, you're watching it very carefully and you'd be quick to notice. If they did come through, you would immediately unlock the exit door and run through it. This strategy should buy you enough time, hopefully so that another blue player is eliminated, which means less and less red players are hunting you down. Alternatively, if there's only two of you that manage to escape from the larger group, you could go into the same position in that room, except instead of being right by the exit, you could hide behind the door entrance. That way, in case a red opponent comes in, you could ambush the red player and try to take the knife from them. That would give you a major tactical advantage by securing a knife for yourself. It's more of a risky play, but it certainly would give you an advantage if you can manage to pull it off. However, there is another major strategy benefit to this, and if you can pull it off, you're probably going to be safe for the rest of the game. Although it's true you are a part of a red and blue team and wear red and blue vests, there was no explicit rule to say that you can't wear the vest of another opponent. And so if you are able to take out a red player, don't even need to eliminate them, but just essentially beat them to a pulp so they can't fight back any longer, you can take the red vest off of that player. You could place it onto yourself and pretend to be a red player. That way, when you're hiding in case a red player does come through and see you, they won't be immediately thinking about eliminating you, and you could hide in the open essentially. Another situation, in case you're being hunted down by red players, has been seen in the show, and I think it's quite smart: playing dead. If you see that your fellow teammate has been eliminated and they're lying on the ground, you could use their blood to mask yourself and also play dead. It would be very unlikely that a red player would be stabbing the bodies of dead players, as the chances of the blue player being dead is quite high, so they would probably want to move on to somebody who is definitely alive. So you've survived the first hide and seek game as a blue player. What about if you were a red player? Well, this changes the strategies quite a bit, because as a red player, you need to hunt down and eliminate a blue player in order to survive yourself. Hopefully, this far into Squid Game, your ethics aren't holding you back too much. As you survived this long, you've probably done some unethical things. However, if you needed some ethical backing to convince yourself to go through with this act, you just need to think about maximizing utility. Killing another player in order for you to survive, or not killing another player so that you die, ultimately doesn't change the fact that somebody will die. So there is little reason not to kill somebody from a philosophical point of view. In fact, it can be argued that it is an ethical imperative for you to hunt down a blue player as fast as possible, since both the red and blue players are stressing that they'll be eliminated. By hunting down a blue player as soon as possible, it means that you end their suffering and they don't have to wait until the end of the timer and continue to be worrying if they're going to be hunted down. Equally, if you eliminate a player soon, you won't have to worry for the rest of the game that you'll be eliminated. That way, there's actually a reduction in net suffering if you just eliminate a blue player as quickly as possible. Hopefully, understanding this concept should give you the confidence you need to actually go through with this, because a big part of this game as a red player is just convincing yourself to eliminate someone else. And so if you can get that through your head, then you have a pretty good chance of going through and winning this game. Unlike blue team, if you're a red player, you wouldn't want to stay in a group, you'll want to be alone. That way you won't have to share or fight for any potential eliminations. You have the knife, so you are in a much more strategically powerful position than your blue opponents, who will be actively running and hiding from you. The main issue you would face as a red player is that whenever a blue player would see you, they would immediately run away and open doors to get away from you. This is why this strategy I will explain is the most important to make sure that you can actually get an elimination. If somebody else has already eliminated a blue player, they probably left the vest there on the dead body. But if you can take that blue vest and wear it over your red vest, when the player sees you, they won't immediately think to run away. In fact, they may actively encourage you to join that group, in which case you have the opportunity to get very close to them and eliminate them. You only need to pull this off once, and the sooner you do, the better. So if you do find a dead player lying down and they have a blue vest, take it. Who knows, maybe in the process of taking off the vest, it reveals that the player is still alive and just pretending to play dead, and you have a free kill just right there. So you've managed to get your first elimination and you've survived the first game. There really is no benefit in helping other players eliminate more blue players, because ultimately the net competition will be the same for you if you help other players in eliminating blue players. What will happen is if the blue players were eliminated, the red players will go through and your competition remains the same. Equally, if you try to stop red players getting eliminations, the blue players will live and become your future competition. Either way, your net competition for future rounds is the same. So the brutal optimum strategy here would be to continue to eliminate as many blue players as possible by yourself, fooling them with your blue vest trick. This way, when more blue players are dead and not killed by red players, the blue players are gone from future competition, and the other red players who failed to find anybody to kill will also be eliminated. And this means it's harder and harder for red players to find a blue player to kill, since you've reduced the amount of opportunities of blue players to be eliminated. The best part about this is you can probably convince people that you haven't eliminated somebody already, and that's why you need to eliminate another player, ensuring you don't lose the trust amongst the remaining players. Unless somebody saw you enacting an elimination, you could get away with eliminating several players without being seen as untrustworthy yourself. You would need to throw away all your ethics and morals to do this effectively, but ultimately this is Squid Game and there's one survivor and you want to be that person. So you've survived the first game and now you're on to jump rope, the second deadly game where two massive dolls swing a huge rope back and forth over a thin bridge and try to take you out with it. The optimum strategy here can vary. What you would want to do first, for sure, is practice jumping in the motions of the rope on the safe island where you start. You want to get into the rhythm of jumping, making sure that you can already jump high enough so not to be eliminated. This should get you warmed up and give you the best chance when you're actually on the bridge to survive. You really wouldn't want to be going first in this. It would be better to stay off the jump rope for as long as possible until another player jumps first. That way you can analyze and learn from what they did right and wrong, giving you the best chance to survive when it's your turn. So now you're on the bridge. There's not really much strategy you can do here other than just having good hand-to-eye coordination and jumping when the rope is coming down. Assuming you do manage to get across, there are a few things you can do. Were you to be one of the few across, you could do what was seen in the game, which I thought was a really fantastic strategy used. Stay at the end and push people off as they come closer. They're going to be worried about having to jump every time the rope is coming down, so they're not going to easily be able to push towards you. You're at a much more secure platform than they are, so you can eliminate so many players just by staying on the secure platform and forcing other players off the bridge whilst they're jumping. This is a really effective strategy and could ensure that so many players are eliminated. You can vote to leave afterwards, split the money, and you've won the game. However, there is a risk if the other player or players who are there before you have a higher moral standing than yourself. They might not want you to eliminate other players, and they might even threaten to push you off if you dare to try and push others off. In which case, this kind of strategy, although very effective, is only possible if you get there first. Not a bad play, just requires you to get across the rope first. So you have to take that initial risk. If you choose not to do this, your next best play would be to help players across the bridge in the hopes to gain favorability, which could save you in future games. So you have made it to the next game, and this is Squid Game, as seen in the first show, but on 2 towers, comprising of a square, triangle, and circle. In the game, only one person per round needs to be pushed off in order for the game to continue. However, the twist is you have to start the game by pressing a red button in order for any eliminations to be counted. There is one pole in the center of each tower, and this is really important because when you first start, you wouldn't know that that pole can be pulled out and used as a weapon to push people off. However, it would be a pole in the center of the tower, and your initial strategy should be to gravitate and hold onto that pole. That way, when any other players try to push you off, you have something to grab onto to secure your position there. It makes you much less likely to be targeted, and therefore more likely to survive onto the next section of the game, since it would be harder to push you off. Assuming you have done this, you might realize that the pole can actually be pulled out and used as a weapon. At this point, you'd want to make sure you're the only person holding onto this weapon, and instead of gravitating towards the center, you want to gravitate towards one of the edges so that your back is secured. You want to be ready to swing the pole back and forth so that nobody even tries to threaten you. You're not trying to actively hunt down anyone here. You're just saying, hey, I'm more effort than it's worth, so don't even think about trying to come near me. If anyone is thinking about trying to eliminate, it has to be somebody else, because I am at too much of an advantage for you to even bother to take me out. This kind of disincentive will be quite effective in making sure you survive each round of the last game. You'd want to be swinging the poles back and forth with enough force so that nobody could grab onto the poles and push you off, or pull you around, or use your weapon against you. That's quite important, but if you manage to get that down, you should be safe for the next round. And the great thing is, by having this pole, you can put yourself in a position where you're the first person to cross the bridge by threatening other people with the pole. When you get onto the next platform, the first thing you want to do is pick up the pole on that platform and just throw it off. That way, you're the only person who has a pole as a weapon. You're the only person who has an advantage. You'd simply want to repeat this process across each platform. If somebody did want to attack you, what you wouldn't want is to throw them down with the pole. You want to use it more on bludgeoning attacks. Hit them with the force of the pole, not push them off with the pole, and throw the pole down with them. This is really only a last resort, because once you've done this, you've given up any of your power with the weapon. And at this point, you've already proven yourself to be too much of a threat to be left alive, in which case the other team members would probably try and target you. When it comes to the final round, your strategy depends on how many people have survived. If it's several people, the same process will go by. Throw the other pole off, stand by the corner, swing it around so nobody even tries to get next to you, and let them fight it out. Simple enough. However, if there are just 2 people left, this is when you become deadly. This is when you start swinging the pole at the other players. You do anything. You need to push them off with the pole, you do it. You have the advantage here. You should be winning this game. Using this strategy will give you the greatest opportunity that you will be the last person to survive Squid Games, thereby winning the entire amount of money and living another day. So there you have it. All the best strategies you need to win Squid Games. You can really maximize your luck if you just put these into effect. If anyone has any more strategies they think that would work in Squid Game Season 3, leave them in the comments, and I promise I'll be replying to every single one. Have a great day and keep strategizing.